Test. Test. Nothing like getting crowd quiet, but with a test. All right, good morning. I'd like to say a big welcome to all of you here this morning. We've got a lot of things to cover today, and I'll go ahead and give you a caveat up front. Some of the things we talk about today, I know this is an exciting group, an excitable group, and a group that's very happy to be here, but there's some of the things that we're going to talk about this morning just aren't that exciting. Some of them are just what it takes to be who we are and do what we need to do for students, but some of them are just getting information to you so that you know who people are and who the people that can help you in the future in your positions as local school governance team members. I'd like to start the morning off with a prayer. He doesn't know I'm going to ask him, but he always does well off the cuff. Mr. Robbie Dasher, if you would open this morning with a blessing.
I did not know that. Let's pray. Father, we just thank you for this day that you blessed us with this today, Lord. I just ask you to be in the midst of us this morning as we gather here. God, we just thank you for this opportunity to gather here with colleagues and with this group of people that are going to be working with our school system and serving. And we all serve together, Lord, to serve the students of this county. Lord, I just pray, God, that we'll do that in a fashion to be pleasing to you, Lord, that we'll keep in the forefront of our minds, Lord, what it is we're here to do and help to make these students give them what they need to be successful in life. Lord, I just ask you to go through this time together with us, Lord. Just lead, guide, direct, Lord. We just praise you and we honor you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now we'll start with a few introductions. We'll introduce our team of directors, central office staff, and some of our directors that are not housed in central office. Some of these people may not be able to stay the entire morning, but I want you to take notes. We'll have this information readily available. These are the people that you and your team, your principal, will go to if a question were to come up about the local school governance team, about finance, about personnel, about curriculum, about facilities, about transportation. This will be the group of people that we will be going to in the future. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Patrick Outwater, Superintendent of Tift County Public Schools for 6 more months. I will say that I'm excited to be here. As superintendent, I've had the true blessing of being involved in this process since its inception. In 2008, the incoming superintendent will have the blessing to work with such a group of people as yourself and the directors that I'm about to introduce. I'll start with our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Mr. Kevin Dobard, our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Clinton Guest, Ms. Stacy Beckham. She's our Human Resources Public Information Officer. She does a little bit of everything when it comes to human resources, public relations being the biggest. Director of Nutrition, Vanessa Hayes, is not here. There she is. She stepped in out of line. She just stepped in. She was helping us get the food set up this afternoon or this morning. Let me put my glasses on, folks. It's just much easier to read. Our Chief Academic Officer, Mr. Mickey Weldon, standing there. Next to him is our K-5 Curriculum Director, Ms. Joanna Hand. Our Secondary Curriculum Director, Dr. LaShonda Flanders. Federal Programs, Dr. Michael Slavin. Next to him is Mr. Michael Norman, a man who gets to do all the unpleasantries in our school system. As you will soon learn, there are many things very good about the system, and then the dark side of the public that we deal with. Our students have multiple challenges, of whom Mr. Norman deals with on a daily basis. Our Technology Officer, Mr. Jonathan Judy. Director of Instructional Technology, next to him is Dana Sperling. Our Special Education Director, Ms. Lee Watson. Mr. Craig Matthews, Director of CTAE. Ms. Watson and Mr. Matthews were, they don't house themselves at our office, but they are part of the central office team. Their feelings were hurt this morning. Their names were on the list. I asked my assistant to help me put the names of our directors, and we just went through the ones that are in our building. But they are directors as well as the rest of the team that you just met. They are just housed where we have locations throughout the building. Mr. Matthews is currently housed, or will be permanently housed, at the New College and Career Academy. We're very excited about that. And Ms. Watson is housed at the Pre-K Center. This is our team of administrators that will assist us. I want you to take this to heart. Again, if something comes up today that you have a question about that we do not answer, write that question down, get it to your principal. We can get it on an agenda. This group of people, myself, and others that we need will make ourselves available to come to your local school governance team meeting and address the specific questions that you may have as it relates to the school that you have selected to serve. You all, if you want to have a seat, make yourselves comfortable, we'll get this party started. All right, again, welcome all of you to the second local school governance team. Yeah, there we go, got a clicker here. Local school governance team training. I want to say that there's one slide in here that I've left when we get towards the end. It's a slide that we've done before. We've had this training once before. Those of you that have had this training, my heart goes out to you. It's not a direct repeat, but it is very similar to what you received 2 years ago. And I'll go ahead and give you an upfront, is that our school board, myself, the superintendent, and our team that you've just met, we negotiated heavily with the state and tried to forego round one of training, so that today would be the first day of true training, rather than having a training 2 years ago and then redoing the training 2 years later. We were unsuccessful in those negotiations, so some of you were trained 2 years ago, and some of you are back here today to hear somewhat of a repeat of what we're going to talk about. But that being said, it's still good information. How did we get here, and who are we? Well, first, our board members will be trickling in and out during the course of the day. We have a 7-member board with Chairman Jonathan Jones, Vice Chair John Smith, Marilyn Burks, Marion Richburg, Keith Barr, Melanie Robertson, and Mr. John Waddell. Those are the 7 elected board members to the Tift County Board of Education. Above all, we must realize that the Constitution of the state of Georgia, even with the, is my voice carrying, or do I need to get in front of the speaker?
No, you need to get in front of the
Oh,
mic.
yeah, okay, sorry, I'm a mover, boy, that's terrible. The Constitution of the state of Georgia still leaves these 7 people in charge. The charter system does give us a lot of flexibility for us to do things within the Constitution, but at the end of the day, the 7 elected board members govern the Tift County Board of Education. We have approximately 1,100 employees, and it's a very large organization. I like to say that until the hospital purchased Affinity, we were tit for tat as the largest employer in Tift, but the Tift Regional Medical Center is the largest employer in Tift, with the Tift County Board of Education coming in as number 2 employer. And that includes everyone, our principals, teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, food service, everyone that it takes to make the school system work is included in that figure. A little side note here, some of you may wonder, sometimes you see that our class student-teacher ratios, I'd like all of you to remember Ms. Watson specifically, in that we have some of our students that are 1-to-1. We have 1 teacher, 1 student, 1 teacher, 1 paraprofessional. So those numbers do increase on a student-teacher ratio based upon the particular needs of a student. But that is included in that number of 1,100. Approximately 8,000 students, ages 3 to 21. Now that number, we have been fortunate. We've had slow and steady growth. Now we grow 10 to 15 students per year. We've been hovering around the 8,000 mark for several years. We've been blessed in the last several years to continue to add pre-K, which when you get to the nitty-gritty of our charter system, one of our goals was to have a 1-to-1 ratio for pre-K to kindergarten. And our pre-K numbers are included in the 8,000 students. Another thing I'd like to point out is that ages 3 to 21. Yes, we have 3-year-olds. Those 3-year-olds ride school buses just like the 17-year-olds. Most of them are driving buses to preschool intervention. But some of them are not 4 years old when school starts for pre-K. So yes, we have 3-year-olds that are not yet 4 that are getting on the bus every day, just like everyone else. Our student count does include all students ages 3 to 21. That's just a little side note. Many people don't realize the magnitude of the student body that we cover. 3 to 21, we're taking almost babies to voting age adults that we keep within the confines of our school and educate. A couple of things that you need to know about who governs who. We all say there are too many chiefs. I'll be the first to agree. There are a lot of chiefs when it comes to education. The governmental institutions that K-12 answers to. The Tift County Board of Education, we receive direction from the Georgia Department of Education, the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, and the U.S. Department of Education. Now, the U.S. DOE, they get their claws into you because of money. You know, they give you the money, and they give you the money, and they expect you to do what they say in return for the funds. The money's pretty hefty in years. It's been $10, $11 million in some years, 4 to 5 in others. When you start looking at a millage rate of 4 to 5 million equals 4 to 5 meals, and the number of students that the federal funds touch, there's no way that we can say, okay, U.S. DOE, you'll take a hike, we're going to do it without you. Financially, it's not obtainable for us to do what we do without those funds. The Governor's Office of Student Achievement has complicated matters in recent years. The governor had taken certain authorities away from the elected state school superintendent and created a totally separate Office of Student Achievement. As we get in today's presentation, you'll understand that we have certain expectations that come from the Governor's Office of Student Achievement and others that come from the Department of Education. Those are the major players that govern what we do, the rules that govern K-12 education in the state of Georgia. And one of the reasons we've chosen the charter system we'll come to later is to get away from some of the Georgia Department of Education's and the state of Georgia's burdensome regulations. All right, how did you get here? And you're going, how did I get here? Why am I here? Some of you were appointed or asked to serve, and you volunteered. I don't think anyone here had their arm stretched or twisted. Maybe you did. But how did you get here? Well, in 2008, 2009, and again, I'll say, this has been a decade in the making. And it's 2008, 2009, the legislators in the state of Georgia thought it would be wise to require all school systems to make a decision. And this was in the heat of charter schools outperforming public schools, and the whole, let's just throw public schools out there and try to make them look bad. Well, one of the things that came about it was we were required as a Board of Education and a Board of Education across the entire state of Georgia to make one of three decisions. Status quo, horrible name. Who wants to choose? I choose to be status quo. And if you chose the status quo option back in 2008, you had to have a public hearing and tell everyone in your system, your teachers, your parents, your constituents, I choose status quo. Well, that didn't fly very well at all, just the name in and of itself. IE squared was an option, and that was the contract again. You see who that contract was with? IE squared was with the Governor's Office of Student Achievement. Well, lots of us didn't want to make a contract with the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, but yet the DOE still be involved in certain accountability measures. It added a little bit of convoluted concerns, and a charter system of which was the most flexible of all, which we ultimately chose. And we'll come back to that in a moment. But you do see here, the charter system gives us a lot of flexibility, and it also comes with a good deal of extra financial incentive. But it is also the most difficult of all of the options. So we move forward. What happened between 2008, 9, and 2013 is systems across the state, everyone was throwing up their arms. The DOE and the Governor's Office of Student Achievement realized real quickly they did not have the manpower to read 180 different contracts or 180 different applications for either a charter system or status quo. So they kicked the can down the road. They were concerned about as it related, as I mentioned, to assist and manage. And legislators were hammered with concerns from constituents and from superintendents and from school board members. So they extended that deadline to 2015, giving both of those agencies more time to plan for that impending change. And the names of the two of the three changed during that course of time. There was such an uproar over requiring a school system to call themselves status quo, they simply changed it to Title 20. Title 20 are the laws in the state of Georgia that govern public education. Title 20 is what we are able to waive with the exception of student safety from being a charter system. IE squared became a strategic waiver system. Sounds good. That's pretty good name change there. And the charter system remained charter system through those changes. All right, from 2009 to 2013, this is what was going on behind the scenes. The school system solicited input from stakeholders, including all of our teachers. Now, we have a lot of teachers that were hired after this time that may not remember or were not a part of the stakeholder engagement that our school board engaged in during this process. The stakeholder engagement is being renewed so that you can put this on your calendar. As superintendent and our board have planned for 2019-20 that the strategic plan be updated for another 5 years. But during this time, we went through an expansive strategic planning process. I see several principals in the room that were part of that. Those of you that are familiar with the University of Georgia Tifton Campus Conference Center, those of you from Tifton call it the old RDC. The old conference room there at the RDC was standing room only. We had several hundred parents and community members that showed up. We spent an entire year drafting a strategic plan. And that strategic plan is what we've used in Tift County since 2013 to drive the goals of the system. The goals of the system don't just come out of the superintendent's hat and say, this is what we're going to do this year. Since 2013, our school system has used the goals driven from the strategic plan for us moving forward. And in those goals, it includes such as student engagement, extracurricular activities. We wanted to have all students reading on grade level by the 3rd grade. So we were very pleased that we did that. It was a lot of work, and it comes back into play in just a few moments. From 2009 until 2015, the Rare School System made early decisions. Gwinnett County and Forsyth County, they were both had good political influence. They made the decision to go strategic waiver early on. They were one or two of the only school systems in the state that made decisions right out of the chute. Well, our concern all along was if you chose strategic waiver and you did not meet the negotiated terms of your contract, the contract says that the Governor's Office of Student Achievement has the authority to come in, take over your schools, reconstitute the staff, and run it the way the Governor's Office of Student Achievement saw fit. Well, no one in Tift, and obviously very few systems in the state, wanted to take that risk that they were going to possibly give up control of their school systems to an appointed board in Atlanta, appointed by the governor to come in and run your school systems in Tift County or any other county for that matter. Well, here's what happened. The two big boys, Gwinnett's the largest school system in the state of Georgia, 180,000 students, and Forsyth, which is a very respected public school system, moved forward with the strategic waivers. They did not meet their contract terms, which means the Governor's Office of Student Achievement now had an opportunity to move in and take over those school systems. Well, the Governor's Office of Student Achievement knew better than to take over 180,000 students, and Gwinnett is a very good school system. They renegotiated their contracts and continued to move forward. How does that play in? It's played in the precedent sets. It set a precedent that if you chose strategic waivers, they've already shown precedent that they will not come in and take over your schools. So the floodgates opened around that time, and most of the school districts in the state of Georgia chose the strategic waiver option. Strategic waiver option grants you an opportunity to negotiate with the State Board of Education and specifically GOSA for what you want in flexibility. If you don't like class sizes, if you don't like instructional models, if you don't like anything about what Title 20 requires you to do in the state of Georgia, you can negotiate in a strategic waiver contract those items and say, we don't want to do it the way that Title 20 says do it, we want to do it this way. And you put that into a contract, and in return, they hold you to a higher level of accountability. So many systems say, well, we have a contract, if we get a contract, they didn't take over Gwinnett, didn't take over Forsyth, we're going to do strategic waiver because it's really, I hate to say it, folks, it was more of a fill-in-the-blank application. A little bit of information had to be gathered, but it was much more of a just fill in the blank, let's get this done, and they churned through the strategic waiver contracts really quickly. Now, during that time, those of us that were sitting back and waiting, our board specifically, and our boards, we still have some of the remaining board members on the board now that were on the board then, sat back and we discussed the options. To be a charter system requires an awful lot of work. That's why you're here. But to be a charter system, you had to have a strategic plan that had parental engagement, community engagement, staff member engagement, and involvement. You had to have that plan in place, and it had to be vetted. We had that plan. We had that plan, and we had in mind what we wanted in Tift County. And we had in mind that one of the things we wanted to continue was to increase parental engagement and community involvement within our school system. Well, our school board made the very easy decision for them, let's move forward as a charter system. What that did, we then put our strategic plan in place. We began negotiations. Parents rode to Atlanta, community members rode to Atlanta with us. We had to defend our application to a screening committee, and we had to defend our application to the State Board of Education, of which we were successful, and we were granted charter system status. Thus, another reason how you landed here today. Now, as charter system, as I mentioned earlier, we asked for them to give us the opportunity for your local school councils to serve in the capacity of a local school governance team for 2 years, so we didn't have to replicate today's training 2 years later. At the same time, you'll see one of the slides in just a few moments that references some of you were churning your parent members every year. In the names of J.T. Reddick and Northeast Campus with one grade schools. It was very difficult. The Board of Education in the state of Georgia did not see it our way, so we had 2 trainings. But you're here, and you're here as a result of the charter system process. Now, what do you do now that you're here? All right. Some of you already know what you do. Some of you I see in the crowd are veterans, 2-year veterans. Let me tell you, 2-year veterans, there's still a lot of questions about what can you do as a local school governance team and what can we do as a charter system. But what do you do? And Mr. Dasher is taking care of the prayer for us this morning. If you want to say your own, gladly do that. But get ready to do what's best for children, what's best for the boys and girls in the Tift County Public School System. Each of you should have been given a copy of the Code of Ethics and Conflict of Interest. You had to sign a statement granting that you understood them and read them and agreed to abide by them prior to accepting your role on the local school governance team, and a copy of the bylaws, which are on your desk. They're also online. I chose to print those just so if you do want something to read during the course of the day that draws a question, you can get that question to your principal and hopefully we can get it answered. Now, accountability for all schools, I want to mention 2 things. We've got a gentleman that's going to be presenting today. I want to mention 2 things to you as it relates to your new positions in accountability. One of the major pieces of accountability for us was CCRPI and beating the odds. Well, Tift County has had a weird arrangement for school configuration. We were pre-K, K3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, which is very strange at best and very difficult at best to explain how we got a CCRPI score. Our principals and central office staff several years ago wrote a very eloquent defense to the State Department of Education saying that the CCRPI was not applicable to our school systems because of our grade configurations. Believe it or not, Superintendent Richard Woods agreed with our position and said that the CCRPI would not apply to our public schools in Tift County at the K3 level because they were unable to computate a CCRPI. So for several years we did not have a CCRPI. And you're going to learn more about CCRPI as you progress in your duties. CCRPI also plays into beating the odds. And I'm bringing these things up because I want those 2 terms to be ingrained into your noggins. CCRPI and beating the odds are 2 convoluted tasks to explain. I want you to ask your principals about CCRPI and beating the odds. The reason it's pertinent this year is that we are now lobbying for a reset year. You all know we went through a massive reconfiguring this year with our grade structures. We have and will be requesting that for as part of our contract negotiations that they reset our CCRPI baseline to this year. This will be the first year in Tift County's history that we have a configuration that gives us full access to CCRPI as most of the other schools in the state of Georgia do for its use in calculating a score and its use in beating the odds. So we're hoping that this school year will be the first year baseline as opposed to the previous school year. One of the items in our contract was the reconfiguration. We had to come up with innovative practices, and the reconfiguration that all of you have been a part of was directly included in the contract in the state of Georgia to become a charter system. Now this item number 3 there, I left that there for one reason. There are going to be questions about who, what, when, why, how, and where. Those of you that are at Reddick and Northeast Campus, and H Street to an extent, were experiencing that churn. I hope now that we'll have some continuity now that we've gone to the K5, 6, 8, 9, 12 grade configuration, and that many of you would choose to serve or are able to serve those full terms so that we get some continuity going at all of our schools. You'll be asking good questions and doing things in the best interest of our boys and girls. Now, that is the introduction of how we got to where we are. I've got a few moments. If any of you have any questions now, we've got a full morning of training. If you have no questions, that's fine too. I want you to write them down if you think of them when I conclude, because we want to get those answered. This is a very exciting thing that we are embarking upon, and I'm going to consider this as year 1. This is year 1 for us as it relates to the charter system and innovative practices. Real quickly, I'll open the floor to questions. If anyone has any, I'd be glad to answer them. If I don't know the answer, I'll get one to you. Any thoughts, goods of the order? All right. Eyes glazed over already. All right. Mr. Pittman. I'm going to introduce Mr. Hank Pittman. He's our school system attorney. Hopefully in the event you won't get in trouble, he won't have to represent you if you make a faux pas. But Mr. Pittman, if you would come up, he's going to go over some of the things that you have now exposed yourself to that could get you in trouble most quickly. Mr. Pittman. All right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hank Pittman, and I'm the board attorney for the Tift County School District. I practice law here in Tifton with the firm of Pittman and Mims. And I hope this is the last time y'all see me in my capacity as attorney. That's going to be the goal in all of this. I wanted to talk to you this morning about the Open Meetings Act. This is an act that applies to all of you local school governance teams. It also applies to all state and local government agencies in the state of Georgia. And so you guys fall under the same laws and the same umbrella as the school board, as the Tift County Commission, city council, and state government. There are several aspects of the Open Meetings Act that we need to talk about, but the primary goal of it is to make sure that we have open government. And that's the policy here in the state of Georgia, is to always have open government. To do that, we've got to follow these certain procedures that are laid out in the Open Meetings Act, which is the Georgia state law. All meetings must be open to the public, and all votes of meetings shall take place in public after due notice and compliance with posting and agenda requirements. That's the fundamental principle we've got to go by with the local school governance teams. And Ms. Bozeman, right now, she is handing out a memo for you guys that you can use as a handbook and a guide as you go through your meetings, and just follow this guide, and that'll get you through. The first requirement is that you give notice of your meetings. And in determining how to give notice, there's three different kinds of meetings that you'll be having. You'll start out by setting all of your regular meetings. You'll do that by having a schedule. An example is the Tift County Board of Education. The board meets every second Tuesday of every month. So local school governance teams, you're going to have a regular set meeting also, and you need to get that schedule, get it in writing, and get it posted at your meeting site. Also get it posted on the school website. And then finally, it's going to be provided to the Tifton Gazette so the public will know when you're having all these meetings. You've got to have your meetings open to the public. So you've got to make sure you've got the times, the dates, and the locations of the meeting available and out there to the public, so they'll know where and when you're meeting and they can attend your meetings. I doubt you're going to get a lot of members of the public coming, but I'm sure you'll get a lot of parents from your school that'll be there. So just make sure that when you're having your meetings, the doors are open, you've given good notice of when they're going to be, where they're going to be, and make sure that, parents and other members of the public can be there. So the first thing you'll do is set all your regular meetings, and you've got to post the date, the time, and the location of those meetings at the school meeting site. I put it on the front door of the school, and I'd also put it on the door where the meetings are going to be held. Also, you need to send that notice of all your regular meetings. That needs to go to Ms. Beckham. She'll put it on the school website, and she'll also notify the Tifton Gazette of when your meetings are going to be. All right, those are regular meetings that are going to take place, of course, on a regular schedule. You can change a regular meeting if you need to. If you need to postpone it or cancel it, that's fine. No problem doing that. Just make sure if you reschedule it, that you give proper notice when you do reschedule it. Now, the other type of meeting you'll be having will be special call meetings. You may or may not need to have those, but if you do, you've got to give 24 hours notice of the special call meeting. The way you give notice is to put a notice of the time and the location of the meeting, put it on the front door of the school, and then put it on the door of the school meeting site. So, but you got to make sure you give at least 24 hours notice. You'll also, the same with regular meetings, with a special call meeting, you'll give notice to the Gazette and also to Ms. Beckham so she can put the notice on the school website. Just remember there's three bases to cover when you're giving notice of a meeting. Number one, you got to post it at the meeting site.